Hello, this is Lucas, and in this video I'm going to be going over object references and copying in JavaScript. So in the last video I went over objects, but now we're going to be going just a little bit more in depth into it. So with primitive types, for example, let's say we have a message, so we just do that message. We can equal this to something like, I don't know, hello. And then if we create a new variable, we have something like phrase equal to message. Right, all we are doing here is we are copying this value and we are placing it in this value. So these are two different values now, okay? So there are two different copies of hello. If I change, so for example, if I do message is equal to, or let's do this a bit easier, let's do phrase is equal to world. Okay, that means phrase is going, the value of phrase is going to change from hello to world, but the value of message will stay the same. Okay, so this isn't going to change to world. That's how primitive types work. Non-primitives like objects, they work a bit differently. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let's say I have an object called user. Equal this to, we'll just do a name, and then I'll do Lucas. Okay, now what we can do is, just like with normal primitive data types, we can copy it. So let's say we do I'll just do admin, and we'll do that to user. So all we're doing here is we are creating a copy of user to admin, but we're not actually. Okay, with primitive types, we will be creating a copy, but with objects, we are just creating a reference to this. Okay, so admin, we can use this as a reference to the user object. Okay, so it's not actually a copy. What I mean by that is, if we try to change the value, so let's say we do admin.name, I'm going to set this to, I don't know, Bob. And then if I do console.log user.name, what do you think the answer is going to be? It's going to be Bob. Now you can see it works differently because we changed the key name for admin to Bob, but we are printing out the user name, which is Lucas. We haven't changed that. But because whenever we create a copy, let's say, we actually create a reference to this object. So that means that we can have two references, selecting and changing, modifying one object. Okay, so that's the way the objects work. They're a bit different, okay, than normal primitive types. Another way to think about this is basically, let's just say we have an object. We just name it X. We'll just equal this to just the empty object. It's fine. And then we'll just do let Y. We'll equal this to an empty object as well. Okay. If we do a console.log, okay, and if we do X is equal to B, and then I'll just do another one. Console.log X is equal to B. Go back. You can see that it is false because this is actually Y, not B. Y and Y. Okay, save that. You can see that they are both false. You can see that they're both false because they're two different objects. Okay, they're two independent objects, so that's why they don't equal. Now, if I set Y is equal to X, well then we are going to get true because X and Y, they're the exact same object. Okay, they're the same object, but even though the value of X and Y is the exact same, the reason why these are false is because they're two completely different objects. Okay. But whenever we set Y to X, Y is the same object as X. It's a reference to X. Okay, so Y contains all the values of that X has, and it always will. no matter if we change the value by X or by Y, they will both change the value, okay? Well, now you might be asking, well, I can't create a copy from an object, I can only create a reference. So what if I want to create a copy, and what if I want to edit one object without affecting the other object? Well, we can do that. So let's just create ourselves an object. So let's just do let user equal this to, I don't know, do a name, give a name Lucas, and we'll just give an age, so do 25, okay? So let's say we want to create a copy of this, but not a reference to this, okay? So we'll just create a new object. We'll just name it clone, because we're just going to clone user into it, but it's going to be empty, okay? It's just an empty object, okay? So right away, these two are different objects, okay? If I was to do this, then all we are doing here is we are creating a reference from clone to this object, okay? But we don't want to do that, right? We want to just create a copy, not a reference. So for now, we're gonna create just an empty object, okay? And now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna copy all the keys and values from this object into this object. Simple as that. So last video I showed you how we can loop through an object. So here it is again. So we're just gonna create a for loop, let key, and then in the object name, which is user. And now all we're gonna do is we're gonna do clone, which is this one here, okay, clone, and we are going to equal this to the user, okay, this object, the key of this user. So actually we need to do key, and then we need to do key, and this will just copy every single key that is inside of this object into this object, and then we can set whatever ones we want. So for example, we can do something like clone.name. We can equal this to Bob, and then we can just do console.log, and then we just have to do clone, and just like that we have copied. And you'll see now, refresh, see we get Bob. Age is still the same, okay? So we do copy the value as well, but you can see now we changed the value for name. But now if I also print out user, you can see that this object has not changed, okay? So Lucas hasn't changed. So that's how we can copy an object into another object, and we can update the values differently without affecting the other one, okay? So the next one, let's say we have two objects, okay? Or we have three objects, whatever. Let's say we want to copy all of the keys and values from one object to another object. So just insert it, basically. So let's remove all of this. We don't need any of this. Let's create a new object. We'll do let, and then I don't know, we'll do something like roll, and then we will just equal this to a I don't know, we'll do role or title. Yeah, sure, title. Then we will just we'll have this equal to I don't know, barber. Okay. So now what we can do is we can copy this object into this object. Okay, with the keys and the values that they have. So the way we'll do that is we'll do object. Okay, object dot assign. Now, what do we want to assign it to? Okay, so the very first parameter is the target. Okay, so we want to target this object. So we want to place the other parameters that we pass in. So if we do this, we want to pass in this object into this object, not the other way around. Okay, obviously if we have multiple of these, that means then we're going to be passing in multiple objects into the very first object. Now, so we can do that, and just like that, we can go back, refresh this. Now you can see we have a title barber because we just copied this key and value pair into this user and then just print it out. Okay, so that's how we can copy objects into other objects. Another quick thing, if that key already exists, it's just gonna overwrite it. So if we have like name and the name is Barber, what that's gonna do is it's just gonna overwrite the name that we have. So you can see name here is Lucas, but then we are trying to assign or copy this key and value into user. So it's just gonna overwrite if that key already exists. So you can see name is Lucas, but then we have name as Barber, so then we're going to overwrite it, so name is going to be Barber, just like this. Okay, so I showed you before in the for loop how you can clone an object into another object, but there's actually an easier way to do this. Let's say that let's remove this for now. So this is the easier way of doing it. So we can do something like, let's say we'll just do clone again. You could just do let clone. Then we can equal that to object assign, and then all we have to do here is we want to assign it to this object, but since clone does not have an object, that means we're just going to assign it to an empty object, and we want to pass in the parameters to the right of that into this object. Okay, so then we can just do something like clone, for example, and what I'm going to do before that is we're going to do clone.name equal you to Bob. And then I'm just gonna do console.log clone, and I'm also going to do user just so we can see how everything works. Let's go back, refresh this, so you can see what's happened here. It's just we used the for loop beforehand to copy everything, but now we're not doing that. It's just this is a way easier way of doing it. You can see on line 6. So all we're doing here is we create a variable clone, and we are equaling that to this object. But because this object is empty, all we're doing is we are copying all of the keys and values from this object here into this object. So this clone will just have just be equal to this. Okay, but now you can see, so firstly we print out clone. You know, it's Lucas 25. Then we change the value of the name for a clone to Bob. You can see then we are printing out clone, which is Bob. But because we haven't changed the user is still the same. So we're not actually, by doing this, we are not creating a reference, we're actually creating a copy, which is, I don't know if that's what you want to do or not. Now we can have multiple keys in one key. Okay, so it's called a nested cloning. So you can see here, let's just create a new one. You can see we have one key assigned to one value, but what we can do is we can have one key assigned to multiple keys and values. So we can do something like I don't know, we'll do car. Okay, and then we'll just do curly brackets, and then yeah, that is basically us. Obviously, we need a comma here. Okay, now in here we can have multiple things. So, for example, we can have some like we'll do make, and then we can have BMW, and then we can have another one like model, and then I don't know, we'll do like a M5. Okay, so what we are doing here, let's just make this a bit easier to read. There you go. So what all we are doing here is we are creating a new key, but that key has multiple key and value pairs. So we have a make, which is BMW, and then we have a model, which is M5. Okay, so we can reference this. So we'll just do console.log do user, because we want to target this user. Okay, this object. Then let's say we want to target. Let's say we want to get the make. Okay, we can't just do dot make. Okay, this will not work. Okay, it's undefined because it doesn't exist. Okay, because it checks these ones. So we have name, age, and car. Well, none of them exist. Well, make doesn't exist. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to call car first. Okay, because car exists. Then we can go back you can see we get this printed out. Then let's say that we just want to get the make, for example, then we'll just do dot make at the very end of that. Now we can get BMW. So it works like this. First one is the object, so user. The second one is the first key, okay? So it'll be these keys here, name, age, or car, okay? And then if we have another key assigned to that, so for make model, then that'll just come after that, okay? So that's about it for this video. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.